Hi guys, good morning and good evening. I hope you are able to hear me. Can anyone please confirm? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so thank you very much for confirmation. Yeah, so in the last session, we discussed about how we can, when you upload the file is going to be divided into multiple blocks, and blocks are going to be distributed across the different nodes that we came across it. So all this stuff is going to be happen behind the scene. We cannot see practically, we cannot view it. So that was internal mechanism. So why market is looking to keep the files in the form of .parquet is to reduce the size of the file. When the size of the file is reduced, the cost we can reduce for storage and the cost we can reduce for process. As well as it is going to improve the performance also. And we have come across a different kind of access tiers, depends on your storage and access. We have come across this, which one is better and who is going to handle this. So all this stuff is going to be handled by administrators. We are not going to worry about it. So if at all, if you are appearing for a DP203 certification, then this will be helpful. Okay. And there is one more thing I wanted to say before starting SQL Server, that is redundancy. So when you go for redundancy, how exactly we are going to have a redundancies that I wanted to talk. Redundancy. So redundancy, this is used to, it is used to replicate the data. It is used to replicate or duplicate the data in the data centers. In the data center, it is going to be done. And by default, there will be 3 copies. 3 copies in the storage. And maximum we can keep, maximum copies is 6 copies. Okay, so when it is going to get 6 copies and when we are going to have 3 copies, that we are going to come across it. So when you load the data into the storage account, what happens is we are going to have a data center. So data center, just imagine, we have seen even when we create a storage account, we have come across taking the region. So we have taken the region when I create a storage account, I have taken the region is Central India I have taken. So whatever the region you have taken, this region is going to be treated as primary region. So that means wherever we are going to create a service or from wherever you are going to take the service, you have to specify from where exactly you wanted to take the service. So we are talking about storage accounts. So I wanted to take the storage accounts from the Central India. I wanted to take the storage account from the Central India. So the Central India will be treated as a primary region. The Central India will be treated as a primary region. I'm just going to have a file. The file is employee.csv. Any kind of format it is. I wanted to upload this file into this. So when I upload this file, what happens in the primary region? So basically, in the primary region, I wanted to say this here is primary region. So region means location. So this will be treated as a primary region. And the primary region is going to have a minimum 3 availability zones are going to be allocated for us. 3 availability zones we are going to get. So like this, you'll be having more availability zones, but we required only 1. So I'm just going to take one. Availability zone 1. This is availability zone 2 and availability zone 3. So like this, you will be having various zones within the region. Within the region, you will be having multiple data centers. So collection of data centers is known as a region. In central India, we will be having multiple data centers. So in the data center, we are going to store it. We know how we can upload the file, or your Azure Data Factory is going to load the data into the storage. But how exactly it is going to be happen behind the scene is, let me say this is ADLS, a Gen 2 account I'm taking. So when you upload the file, we are going to take the redundancy. So redundancy is used to duplicate the data. It is used to replicate the data to make it more available. So the data is going to be available more when you compare with on-prem. So this kind of feasibilities or this kind of platform, if you want to give in on-prem, it's very, very difficult. So because of that reason, we used to move, or most of the companies are moving towards to the cloud, is because to make the data more available. So let me create a storage account. Then you can see the first type of redundancy I'm going to take first. There are 4 different types of redundancies. Okay, so let me say here, there are 4 different types of redundancies. One is LRS, that is locally redundant storage. GRS, zone redundant storage. GRS, that is geo redundant storage. And finally, we are having GZRS. So when we can go for LRS, when we can go for GRS or ZRS or GZRS, that we are going to see. So if I wanted to store the data within the region, there are some companies, there are some countries, they used to store the data within their region. So if you take a UK countries, they don't store the data out of their region. Okay, so they have some restrictions. Okay, so governance, they're having it. So if they wanted to store the data within their region, and not only this, even government projects kind of data will be stored within their region. They don't store out of the region. Okay, so that will be the policy. Okay, so if we have that kind of requirement, if you wanted to store the data in the LRS, then how exactly we are going to handle that, we are going to see. When you bring this copy, when you take the data from employee.csv into the storage, this is going to get 3 copies of the data you are going to get. 3 copies of the data you are going to get. 1 copy, 2nd copy, and 3rd copy. So these 3 copies are related to same file. So employee.csv file is there in 3 times. Employee.csv file is there in 3 times. Let's say, for example, I have some movies. Okay. If I have a movies, what you can do? Basically, like I stored these movies. I wanted to watch these movies. Okay. So I feel this. I wanted to see this. You stored it in the laptop, and one fine day your laptop is corrupted. Then you're going to lose the movies. Or you're having a photos. Okay, so for most of you, photos are important. So you store the photos in your system, and one fine day your laptop was corrupted. So for some reason it was corrupted. If that is the case, then you're going to lose the photos. So that means there are more feasibilities to lose your data if it is your laptop. You just imagine the same photos I just kept in an external hard disk also. I just kept in an external hard disk also. Even if my laptop is corrupted, still my photos are available in the external hard disk. So that means the availability of the data is more. Even if this is also corrupted, then definitely we are going to lose the photos. If I have a movies in the Google Drive or somewhere, if I have a photos in the Google Drive, then I can take it back again. That means this is also one backup you are failing. So in the same way, if I have the data in the multiple places, if at all, if I lose the data at one place, there are more chances to have the data. So because of that reason, we are going to take the replication. We are going to take the replication. So data is going to be stored in the different racks, not in the same racks. So I hope I shown you how exactly you're going to have a data center. You're going to have something like this. It is going to be having the data centers. So in the data centers, we are not going to have the data in the same place. So that may be in a different racks, that may be in the different place. When you store the data behind the scene. Okay, so it is going to be happen. Okay, so we don't know where exactly it is going to store the data. So that means 3 copies of the data is going to be there. If any of the rack is corrupted, still you can take the data from different rack. So there is a more availability of the data, and this kind of redundancy will be used for government projects. And if they have any restrictions to store or to store within their region, then we are going to use the LRS. So there is a one more redundancy, that is ZRS. When we can go for ZRS is if I have a LRS, if my availability zone, if my data center is down. I told you primary region means collection of data centers. If my data center itself is down for some reason, so if this is the case, due to power or due to some unexpected issue, my data center is down. So there is a more chances to lose the data even if you have a multiple copies in the different racks. The entire data center got corrupted. So if this is the case, then we can go for a different kind of redundancy, that is ZRS. So in ZRS, you are going to have a copies. Here is going to be 1 copy. Here is going to be 1 copy. And here also is going to be another copy. So now 3 copies are there in 3 different data centers. So like this, you will be having multiple data centers. Multiple data centers within the region. So if my entire data center is corrupted, still I have a data in other data center. Even if this is also corrupted, still I have a data in other data center. And there is a feasibility if my entire region is corrupted, there is a possibilities. If the entire region is corrupted, then there is a chances to lose the data. So even if you have this kind of situation, still they are providing the feasibility for us with a different kind of redundancy. That is GRS. When the moment I get a GRS, then we are going to have a secondary region. We are going to have a secondary region. So when the secondary region comes into the picture is, we don't have any control on the secondary region. When the secondary region comes into the picture is, when you upload the data as a GRS, Geo Redundant Storage. When you get Geo into the naming standard, then make sure the data is stored in the secondary region also. And in my current project, we are using GRS. Geo Redundant Storage we are using for my storages, for Azure Data Lake Storage N2, as well as even for the database also, we are using the GRS. So if you have a GRS, then there is a less chances to lose the data. So here, what happens is, I'm going to have a 3 copies of the data here. and 3 copies of the data I'm going to have here. So 3 copies are there in both of the places. The secondary region is always going to be LRS only. You cannot have a multiple zones because that is a secondary region. So in the secondary region, we are going to have a 3 copies. So we can say now we are having a 3 copies in the primary region and 3 copies in the secondary region. So total 6 copies you are going to have it. So I told you maximum you are going to get 6 copies. Depends on this. If you have a secondary region, then only you can have it. And I have a one more redundant mode, that is geo zone redundant storage. GZRS, I'm going to have a 1 copy here, 1 copy here, and 1 copy here. Total 3 copies. And here also you are going to have a 3 copies. This is a geo zone redundant storage. So when you compare between these 2 regions distance, you are going to have a thousands of miles away. Thousands of miles away you are going to have between the 2 regions. So there is a less chances to affect the both of the regions. Okay, so primary region and secondary region, you will be having full control on taking primary region, but you're not going to have a control on the secondary region. So now I'm going to take you through how we can have this different kind of regions. Just for sake of your certification, I'm going to take you through this. Let's go and create a storages. Let's go to the portal. I'm going to take a storage accounts. Let's create. Let's create a separate resource group. I'm just giving Bhaskar-QA. Let's hit OK. We know already all this stuff. The storage account I'm taking Bhaskar ADLS. LRS I'm taking. So locally redundant storage, that is the name of the meaning for that. So here you can see redundancy. For less workload, less demands of your workloads, then you can go for this. This is the lowest cost it is. Okay, so locally redundant. Let's go to next. And you're going to choose this checkbox to make this ADLS Gen 2. And hit on review. And create it. So here I'm going to do it one by one. Basically, we can do parallelly. So once we habituated, then we are going to see how we can do parallelly to save the time. The starting I'm going to take one by one. Once the LRS is created, then I'm going to take the ZRS. Just that admin team said the payment details and all, just please make sure to clear and get it in touch with them to get the access for the recorded sessions, materials. Okay, so get it as soon as possible. from tomorrow's session that is going to be very important for us. Okay, so till now, like this role will be taken care by administrators. So once we started into SQL Server, then most of the times we are going to our activities. As a developer, writing a SQL code is important. So in the interview also they are going to ask many questions. So we are going to see more in detail because there is a Spark SQL. When you go for working as a data engineer, they are going to ask you, do you have experience in Spark SQL? Or they will ask a questions in the Spark SQL. So Spark SQL is not much different. If you know SQL, then you can understand Spark SQL is not much difficult. So we are going to see all of them. Taking time, this. Okay, I'll do, yeah, it is done. Let's go to resource. So once you go to the resource, I'm not going to create any containers. I just wanted to show redundancy. There is a redundancy option here. You can see the redundancy is the primary region. The data center type is the primary region that is located in central India. And you can see there is only one region. Now I'm just going to duplicate this file. I mean to say this tab. Let's go to the home again. I'm going to create a storage accounts. Let's create. I'm just taking a QA resource group. So here I'm going to take ZRS. This is the one. Let's go for next. Make this checkbox, review it, and create. So let me duplicate this. And we can also create a GRS. Let's go to home. Storage accounts again. Here it is, ZRS is going on. I'm creating GRS here. Let's create it. GRS. And let's take a, yeah, it is by default, it is a GRS. Let's review it. In the advanced, I forgot to check this. Let's review again. So you can move any tab at any point of time if you want to test, if you want to set anything while creating. And finally, there is a one more GZRS is there. Let's duplicate the space again. Let's go to home. Again, storage accounts. Let's create. Let's take a QA resource group. GZRS. So there is a one checkbox is happening here. Make read access to the data available event of regional unavailability means if at all if my primary region is not available, if you check this checkbox, you can read the data from the secondary region. If you don't check this checkbox, automatically you cannot read it. You have to do something else behind the scene again to make the data available of your secondary region as a primary region. So we are not going to do all those stuff because that is purely related to the administrators. I'm just selecting directly here itself read access. Let's make this checkbox and review it and create. So we have seen here LRS. LRS is there in the single place. And when you go for ZRS, the ZRS also is going to be having only primary region. You're not going to have a secondary region. If you go to the redundancy, you can see here, there is a only primary region. Now I'm going back, I'm going to the geo redundant storage. Let's go to resource. And I'm just going to the redundancy. from the data management, you can see previously for LRS and ZRS, we are having only primary region, but when you go for GRS, geo redundant storage, I'm having primary region as well as secondary region. I have selected only primary region. I don't have a feasibilities. I don't have a control on the secondary region. I can decide my primary region, but I cannot decide by my secondary region. Secondary region will be decided by Microsoft itself. So within the region, whatever the nearest location is there, that nearest location it is going to be taken. So between these two regions, between your central India and South India, you will be having thousands of miles away. So they're not near each other. Okay, so far away it is going to be there. So that is one of the reason people are used to, most of the companies used to take with GRS, geo redundant storage. Even in my company, we are using GRS only. And GZRS also is there. It's more or less same. Only thing is you'll be having different zones also you'll be having. Let's go for redundancy. You can see read access geo zone redundant here. So same to same primary region and secondary region, you're going to have it. And if you wanted to change the redundancy mode, you can change at any point of time, depends on the requirement. So maybe today you're having LRS, but you wanted to move to the GRS. You can move to GRS also. It's all depends on your requirement, you can take it. Okay, so if your requirement demands, then you can go for that. Now I'm having LRS here. If you have a LRS, then you can move to the geo redundant storage or zone redundant storage. So whatever the target redundancy you need, that redundancy you can take it if you wanted to change. So this is all again internal mechanism. We should know about how we can upload the file, or we should know about how Data Factory or Databricks is going to load the data into the Azure Data Lake Storage Center. So that is more enough for us. Okay, so we talked about this, the PaaS service from here, from storage platform. We have come across this PaaS. Under the PaaS, we have seen the Azure storage accounts. So in the same platform as a service, apart from the storage accounts, we have a Azure SQL Server. This Azure SQL Server is important for us. In real time, we are going to use this, not only here, as I said, Spark SQL. Okay, so PySpark, Spark SQL is important for us. So how we can write the SQL code as part of the notebooks, as part of Azure Databricks. In order to know that, you need to know about at least the basics of the SQL Server. You require to know it. So do not think they don't ask SQL Server. 100% is minimum 10% of the questions they're going to ask from the SQL. Okay, so even if you go for data engineering position, or even if you go for data analyst position, whatever the position you're going to work, or whatever the role, if the role is related to data, 100% they're going to ask about these questions. So now I'm going to talk about Azure SQL Server. Let's take this Azure SQL Server more in detail. So Azure SQL Server is there in different places. Okay, in different places we are going to have, but I'm going to take this from the PaaS, Platform as Service. I am not taking from the IaaS, Infrastructure as a Service also is available, but we don't need to know about it. We need to know about Azure SQL Server from the PaaS, from the Platform as a Service. So in the Platform as a Service, they have given 3 deployment models. So Azure SQL Server, and I just wanted to say deployment models. There are 3 different types of deployment models. One is single database. I'm just giving here, for just understanding, I'm just giving database 1, database 2. Even this also, I'm just going to give database 1, 2, and 3. So 3 databases I'm having. All these 3, we can call them as otherwise let me keep like this. This I'm trying to make it to understand in easiest way. So this is a single database. So here I have a single database only. I have only one database. And I'm going to keep these 2 databases in the one box. So this I wanted to say elastic pool databases. Elastic pool databases. Let me bring this to the top. Okay, so this entire thing is going to be there in the single place. Okay, and I'm also going to have this is one type of deployment model I'm having. And I have a one more deployment model I'm having. Let me expand this. Okay, so let's go here. I'm just going to take one more thing, that is managed instance. So in which region and in which situation we are going to use this in the managed instance, that we are going to say. So these 2 services, this box and this box, are PaaS services, platform as a services. These 2 green boxes are platform as a services. So we can have this as well. Managed instance is one type of the deployment model. And there is a one more type of deployment model, but that is IaaS platform. So I'm just going to take a different color for this. Let's take a black. So this is SQL Server in virtual machine. SQL Server in virtual machine. Okay. So this is IaaS platform. Infrastructure as a service. And this is platform as a service. Platform as a service. And this box also is platform as a service. Okay, so when you go for Azure SQL Server deployment models, we have three different types of deployment models. One is a single database or collection of databases you can keep in one place. Okay, so we can have it. Another place is managed instance and SQL Server in virtual machine. This is IaaS. We are not going to touch this. We don't need to know about it. Okay, so this role will be taken care by someone else. But accessing the data from the SQL Server, which is hosted in virtual machine or in the on-premise or in the event pass service is very much similar. So reading data from there, loading data into that particular place is 100% the same, irrespective of the platforms. So SQL is common for every kind of RDBMS tools. So 90% of the SQL is same, even for Oracle, even if it is a SQL Server, a DB2 or anything. So 90% of the SQL you can feel same. Now, I am going to show you how we can create this one. I wanted to create a SQL Server. So if I wanted to create a SQL Server, basically practically we are going to see this. This is not going to be possible to show, and this is also not going to see as part of our course because we are not required to know about them. So let me go to the first portal, and I'm trying to create a SQL Server. Let's go to a service called Azure SQL. When I select Azure SQL, you can get this. Let's open it. And I'm just going to create a SQL Server database. You can see here SQL databases. SQL databases, let me give the naming standard here is SQL databases. So this entire box is SQL databases, and this is managed instance, and this is SQL Server in virtual machine. You can see here SQL virtual machines. So when we can go for SQL databases is best for modern cloud applications, hyperscale and serverless options are available. So if you want to increase the compute, you can increase the compute, and if you wanted to decrease it, you can decrease. Even serverless compute also we are having as part of this. So I told you there is a elastic pool. If you take the resource type, I have a single database here, and I also having elastic pool. So when we can go for elastic pool, I'll tell you. Let's take a first single database, and I'm just going to say hit on create. When I hit on create, the single database is going to be created. The single database is going to come with the dedicated resources. Okay, so when you take a single room in the PG, then definitely whatever the room that is allocated to you is specific to you only. So that is not going to be used by others. So it is coming for you only. You are taking for you only. So in the same way here, your single database comes with a bundle of the resources. So bundle of the resources means how much storage is required, how much compute power is required is fixed. So the fixed compute power and fixed resources is going to get if you go for the SQL databases. And if you want to increase them, then how we can increase that we are going to see. So for time being, I'm just going to create a database. I'll come back to this window, and if I wanted to take the database from the databases, if you want to take the data from the databases, then we have a different types of purchasing models. Okay, so I'm just going to take this. Let me take this part. Databases. Just because of the space issues, I'm just taking. Okay, so this particular area, or I'll do one thing instead of this. So here itself, I'm just going to take that. I'm going to have a three different types of pricing tiers. Two different types of purchasing models. Two different types of purchasing models. If you want to purchase a database from the Microsoft SQL. So one is DTUs based purchasing models. DTUs based purchasing model, and let me keep this with the boxes. One is DTUs based purchasing model, and second is vCore based purchasing model. So if you want to take the databases from the Microsoft Azure, we have two different types of purchasing models. One is a DTUs based purchasing model, another is vCore based purchasing model. I faced an interview question from this particular areas. Okay, so different types of purchasing models. How we can decide? Depends on the requirement, we are going to decide. But don't say depends on the requirement, we can decide. But when you say about this, you should be aware of something, you should be aware of some idea. So where exactly you have used, what kind of purchasing tier or what kind of purchasing model that you have used. So whatever I experienced in my company, in my present project, that I'm going to take you through about more details about this particular situation, so that when the moment you get the question, you can present in the same approach. So as I said, we have two different types of purchasing models. DTUs based purchasing model and vCore based purchasing model. And every purchasing model is having three different types of pricing tiers. Three different types of pricing tiers I'm having. One is here, in this particular case, is a basic. So basic pricing tier I'm having. And when you can go for the basic, I'll talk about it. And here I have three different types of pricing tiers. So two different types of purchasing models and three different types of pricing tiers. First is basic, second is standard, and third is premium. So three different types of pricing tiers, we can call them as under this. Under purchasing model, we have a pricing tiers. And in the same way, the way I'm having three here, in the same way I have a three under the vCore based purchasing model also. That is general purpose. General purpose and business critical. Let me keep this at this particular place. And here I'm going to say hyperscale. So three purchasing models even in this particular place. So in real time, we are not using the vCore in my project because this vCore is little more cost when you compare with the DTUs. So the DTUs also depends on your requirement. You can go for the basic, you can go for the standard, or you can go for the premium. So any one of them you can go. So in my project, we are using the standard for my development as well as QA. And when it is for production, we are using the premium. So premium 1000 DTUs we are using. Okay, so I'll talk about DTUs means data transfer units. DTUs means database transfer units. So how many database transfer units are required for your database that we need to decide. So basic is going to have a fixed bundle of resources. Basic, it comes with the fixed bundle of resources. Like compute and storage. We cannot increase or decrease compute. And this is recommended for development. Recommended for development and POCs. So proof of concepts kind of projects if you have, then you can go for this basics. Otherwise, I don't recommend to go for this. And even for practicing purpose, in our activities, in our purpose, we can take this basic. Basic can be taken. Now I'm going to create a database with this basic pricing tier. This basic pricing tier is available in the DTU-based purchasing model. And let's go to the portal. I have taken SQL database here, right? So I'm just going to take the subscription and resource group. I'm taking QA resource group. And I'm just going to have database name. So database name may be anything. I'm just going to take source is the name of the database. I wanted to give the name of the database is source. And there is a SQL server and I wanted to have a SQL server. If you want to take the database would be there in the server. Let's say if I wanted to take the database. So there may be single database or there may be multiple databases. Whatever the number of databases you are having, you have to make sure keep them in the server. The outer box is the server. Server is required. So we need to create a server name. My database name is source. My database name is source. That I know it. Okay, so one more database I'm going to create, that is target. Just imagine. Not yet created. Now my plan is to create a source database. So this source database requires a server. So we need to create a server. If you don't have the server, then you cannot have your database. Let's create new. And the server name we need to provide here. Bhaskar SQL 321 I am taking server name. Any name that you can take here if it is available. Globally it should be available. Now you can see it is available. Bhaskar SQL 321.database.windows.net is the name of the server. Let's go and take the location. My nearest location is Central India. I'm just taking. This is a recommended location for me. And I'm nearest to this, so I'm just taking Central India. So when you have a server, you have to connect to the server. If I wanted to connect the server, then you need to have a login details. If you want to open your home, then key is required. If it is locked, 100% you need to lock it. So security is important. So to go inside, then we required login details. So that is what authentication method. We have a two different types of authentication methods we are having. We can say 3. Microsoft Entra only authentication, or you can go with the SQL authentication, or you can go with the both of them. SQL and Microsoft Entra authentication. So here for practicing, I'm going to take a SQL authentication. In real time also, you will be having SQL authentication also. Okay, so depends on their requirement. The administrators are going to take what kind of authentication they required. So here I'm taking SQL authentication. So server administrator is required for every database or for every server required administrator. So server administrator means he is an administrator for all the databases are hosted in the server. Okay, so I'm just taking my name here. Bhaskar is the admin. I'm just taking password here. Just provide the password. All this criteria should be matched, then only it is going to be created. Confirm the password. Once it is confirmed, let's say hit OK. So once you hit on OK, do you want to keep this data in the elastic pool? No, I don't want to keep that in the elastic pool. Let's make this as no. And work environment, this is for development, I wanted to take it. So when the moment you select the development, the configuration of the database is going to be changed. If I select the production, you can see hyperscale. If it is a development, it is taking general purpose serverless. But I don't want to go for this. I wanted to go for what? Basic. I wanted to go for basic configuration. Let's go and hit on configure database. And here I have a pricing tier. Under pricing tier, you can see two purchasing models I'm having. One is vCore based purchasing model and other is GTO based purchasing model. And each and every purchasing model, I have a three pricing tiers. One is basic pricing tier, standard and premium. These three are there under the DTU based. And vCore is having general purpose, hyperscale and business critical. Okay, so I'm going to take the basic here at this point of time. Let's take a basic. Then when it is a basic, the number of DTUs here is fixed. How many DTUs are giving? 5 DTUs are giving. Okay, so you're going to have a 5 DTUs. You cannot increase the number of DTUs. So in real time, there is a less chances to use this basic, but there are some situations to use the basic. If you have a less volume of data for going do the development, then you can go for this. Or if you have a POC kind of project, then you can go for the basic. Otherwise, we can go for another pricing tier that is standard. Let's apply at this point of time. I just applied and you can see here redundancy. We talked about this redundancy. We have a local redundant, zone redundant and geo redundant. We don't have a one more that is geo zone redundant is not available. We have only 3 different redundancies for the databases. So let's keep local because the cost will be less if it is a local. Let's go to the next. In the next step, in the networking, you have to make sure few things for practicing. If you want to connect, then you have to select the public endpoint. You have to select the public endpoint. Basically, in real time, private endpoints will be used. But here, we are going to take the public endpoint is because we don't have a private endpoints. Okay, so network administrators will take care about creating this private endpoints and all to add the private endpoints. They will take care. You don't worry about it. So for practicing, I'm going to take only public endpoint. So in public endpoint, you have to make sure to add your client IP address. Your client IP address means your system IP address, your network IP address need to be added. So when you select this yes, then automatically your client IP address will be attached. Your client IP address will be added. So once it is added, just go to the review plus create. And here I have a sample database also. I don't need to go for sample database. In the additional settings, you can see in the additional setting, there is a sample database you can go, but I don't want to go. I wanted to create an empty database. Let's go for review plus create. So this is the estimated cost is 465 rupees. This may go little increase. This may go little decrease also. So depends on the demand, depends on your users is going to vary the cost. but this is the estimated cost. Let me hit on create. It takes a couple of minutes to make it available. The previous recorded sessions also they kept in the chat box. So you can check your chat box. So behind the scenes, see, everything is getting created automatically. But if you wanted to do this kind of thing in the on-prem, to create a SQL server, to set up a SQL server in on-prem, it is going to take very longer time. So because of that reason, most of the companies are looking forward to the cloud. Yes. So before going to the Spark SQL, we are going to test the basic SQL. Okay. So mostly from tomorrow, we are going to start talking about the basic SQL, so that will be helpful for our Spark SQL. Let's go to resource. And now it is available here. So this is the name of the server. Now, if I wanted to see the database, I need to go to this particular server. I need to connect to the SQL server. So how we can connect to the SQL server? To connect to the SQL server, we have three different types of clients. We have three different types of clients. One is query editor. That is from the portal. Which portal it is? Azure portal. From Azure portal itself, we can connect to your SQL server. This is one type of connectivity. And there is another type of connectivity. We can use another client, that is SQL Server Management Studio. Apart from that, I have one more, that is Azure Data Studio. Using these three, we are going to connect and see how database or server is available. We can use all of them to connect. So for every client, okay, so for time being, I wanted to say these are all the client tools. Client tools to deal with SQL Server. So to deal with the SQL Server, we are going to use this client tool. So this is specific to for only Azure Portal SQL Server, but this too will be used for any kind of SQL Server. That may be on-prem, that may be cloud also. So now here we are taking a cloud SQL Server. You can also use on-prem SQL Server to connect by using SQL Server Management Studio. So this is very, very important and we are going to use very frequently. So in order to connect it, what we required to connect, we required server. What is the name of the server? And then authentication. If you want to connect, definitely we require server name. So in this particular case, what is the name of the server? You can take this is the name of the server. I'm just pasting here. This is the name of the server.